We'll run through this quick today. And I got to share my screen. Doobie-doo, generic monitor, start sharing. All right, let me know if you guys are seeing my screen or not. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you guys all joining. I know we're getting to the end of the year and we've got a lot to do. And I appreciate the TV, book, movie chat before the talk. That was fun. We should maybe do that as an episode, as a whole meeting next time. Maybe that'll be our free meeting next time coming up. We'll talk about movies that we hate and things we love. So today I was tasked with the idea of talking about the idea of free. We've talked a lot in the past about having some type of free product that we give away to everybody, whether it's a lead magnet or some other type of free content. And we'll talk about that a lot about that today, but not as much as focusing on the idea of what you're producing, but why you're producing it. And in that discussion about why we do something, open up the avenue for a lot of people to explore different ideas of free. You know, it's not just a book that we can do for free, and we'll talk about, you know, a bunch of different ideas that people can do and people can, you know, implement based on their interests, based on what they're able to do, based on things they enjoy doing, and how you can leverage that as your quote unquote free thing in order to build a community, build interest, and generate reach into, you know, for your books, whatever you might be doing. If you have any questions, I have the chat here on the side that I'm going to monitor both of them hopefully here. I don't normally have my dual monitor. I don't have my dual monitor set up today, so I'm having to do everything on one monitor. It's been a little bit more challenging. Let me just double check that everything's running. Good, it is. All right, so again, this is a slide I always bring up whenever I'm tasked with giving a talk and talk about your digital author ecosystem, because a lot of the times, you know, we talk about selling books in physical books in person at our events, and that is a whole separate way of selling your books. But a lot of the times we're trying to sell our books digitally, you know, so we can make money while we sleep. And every one of these bullet items is, you know, a various aspect of your digital ecosystem, and each one of them is obviously very dynamic and very, you know, large. It can be very large, it can be very small, depending on your interest and what you want to push and what you want to focus on. And today, since we're talking about free will tend to touch a lot of different things. So lead magnets, giveaways, group promotion, newsletters, social media, websites, blogs, vlogs, if you're going to do YouTube or something like that. It can touch a lot of aspects. And for each and every one of us, it could touch it in a different way. So the first thing we want to talk about is why free. So obviously this is value for value. A lot of the times when we are pushing free, we are asking someone to do something for that free item. In some cases, it's give an email address. Sometimes it might be join our Facebook group, give me a subscribe on a podcast or on a vlog, whatever that thing that you're asking them to do. We want to give them a little bit of value so that they give you the value back. It does allow people to, in essence, taste the soup, sort of say, and read your book, enjoy what you're doing, or follow me, listen to me, read me, and I'm going to give you something for free in order to entice you to stay around. One of the problems that we have as writers is that we have a slow production model in what we're doing. You know, it's very hard for us, for most people, most authors, and even the really, really good indie authors, they're not producing books, you know, unless you're, you know, the Anderleys or those type of guys who are producing a lot of books and they have kind of their own production system. We're writing our books as we, you know, go through the year. Yeah, plagiarism. It is hard for us to produce at a high rate. But we run into this conflict of, well, it's hard for me to produce a lot of stuff, but I also need to stay relevant to my readers and my community and my fan base. And how can I have a tension there? How do I produce things for them to be interested in what I'm doing that gives enough time until I produce another book, or I, you know, join another anthology, or I work with another group of authors to promote something? How do I keep people interested in what I'm doing? And all of our marketing kind of boils down to these three bullets, which is finding the right people that will spend money, and then finding the right people who will spend money and also stay and be your fans. Like, they want to buy your books, they want to follow who you are, and how do I keep up that momentum all the time? And that, I think, that's a lot of the existential issue that we all run into, is that we want to write books, we want to be our own boss, we want to be our own publishing company, we want to be our own, in essence, business, but we come to that realization in order to do that, it's a full-time job. It's something that we have to do all the time. And a lot of us thought we could just write books and become millionaires. Some of us might, but most of us are going to have to work at this. And doing the work is the hard part. And and doing the work over a sustained period of time, not just doing the work for a month or two and, oh, it's not working, I quit. But we all know that we're playing this long game. So there's a little bit of that tension that we have to overcome in order to find what works. And free is part of that, just one layer in what we're trying to do, as a way to spur interest and find that community of people. So having a solid free plan will help you build what you're doing and keep those fans. So a free plan, and we'll talk about what that looks like. So just to start with, we'll talk about YouTube and tangentially TikTok is more of a joke than anything, but because I got a lot of gray hairs now, so I get to be the old curmudgeon-y guy on the porch telling people to get off my lawn now. But so let's talk about some free examples. We are in the entertainment and, in some respects, the information economy, where we are building something that's digital. And what do you do after you become a millionaire? I don't know. Write more books. That's what I say, John. We're in this information and entertainment economy, and we have to balance this idea of free versus paid. Like people are going to buy stuff from us, but also we have to understand that free is a model to entice people or generate interest in who we are. And obviously we know some of the largest companies in the world have, in essence, their whole product is free, right? We have Facebook, where you are actually the product, where your information and what you do is the product. So there's a little bit of issue around that. But in essence, Google and Facebook are free products. You're reading slides on a Google Drive account, and it is a free thing that I get from Google, and they get to sell my information to try to sell ads. And I use that. Again, YouTube is another example of that, where you get to create videos, upload videos, host things and content for free, but they're using you in order to sell ads. Social media is a good, media influencers are a good example of that. And we as authors and publishers kind of fit into that a little bit, that we fit into that type of world. I mean, I know I'm subscribed to Tor's monthly newsletter, and they send out free books themselves, right? Something free for you to read. Now they have a huge catalog and a huge publishing platform. They have the ability to give away some free things, but we see this across the board where authors and publishers are creating content in order to generate interest in what they do. So for example, I have a couple examples here. MIT is a good one. So they have the open courseware where you can actually go watch lectures at MIT. Art Tutor is a good one where they teach you how to do art, and it's on YouTube. You can always go into podcasts like Lore or We're Alive. These are creative endeavors that are tangential to writers, people who are actually producing content. Even newspapers do it as well, like The Daily from New York Times, right? They are producing daily content, daily podcasts to generate interest in their platform so that you go and buy a subscription from them. Costco is another good example of that, is more of like a physical example of that. We just have to understand that free is the thing that is expected in the marketplace to some level, and you have to find out what that free looks like. So before you start that, we want to talk about this content matrix, and I've brought this up a bunch of times. The idea of putting all of your content as a publisher into a matrix and understanding where you need to focus your time. And here in this talk, and in general, you want to focus on the red, where you have your lead magnets that lead into your regular content, whether it's a series or a standalone book or a standalone series, however you end up doing it. We want to collapse and focus our effort in the red area. That is not to say that you can't run a promotion on something else, but a lot of times we get too scatterbrained, and we need to focus and narrow our thinking on something that's very simple. And free falls into this, the idea of free. So we limit what we're focusing on in order to maximize our return. Okay. I wanted to add another column to this to say that I want you to challenge everybody to, maybe coming up into the new year, to think beyond just your lead magnet and see how you can develop some other type of public persona, whether it's blog content, social media content, short stories, book reviews, video podcasts, whatever you end up doing, whatever fits into your mentality, what you can sustainably do. And we'll talk about ideas later about this. Fit that into your free content so that it funnels people into your lead magnets and ultimately into your author content. And this can be very elaborate, like someone like Mark Dawson or Joanna Penn, obviously they are already successful authors, so they already have a big following, but some of the smaller authors who are trying to do similar things to this, you want to generate interest in you as an author in a way that you find acceptable and sustainable. All right. So why do we do that? Well, that's to funnel people into your marketing funnel. So the idea of a funnel where you actually capture people, not in a bad way, but a good way, their interest, and they begin to move down through the funnel. And the funnel goes from know, like to trust. So they find out who you are, they know who you are. That can be your lead magnet, that can be your public persona, whatever that might be. You then stay relevant to them by delivering routine content over a period of time that hardens their interest in you as a creator. And then ultimately they trust you and they'll make that purchase. That can happen very quick. Like they find out who you are, you give them a free book and they go and buy the series. And that can happen in the span of a week. Some other people, it might take weeks for them to begin to trust you, or months, or they may need to read 2 or 3 of your books before they get where you're going and they really become your fans. So it can be adaptive on the amount of work it takes, but this is basically in your mentality. This is what you're trying to do. You're trying to get found and discovered. You want those people then to like you and then trust you. Okay. Again, know, like, and trust. So using free to find those people, using free to then engage those existing people, because they may find out who you are and go, oh, this person writes in something that I'm interested in. But, I go and read a few of their blog posts, or I read a few of their reviews, or I watch something on their YouTube channel and go, wow, I really like this person. I'm going to go buy their book and figure out what they're all about, right? Being authentic is the key. Being authentic will outlast being slick. There's a lot of slick authors out there. There's a lot of slick marketing out there, and that works to some extent. But really, I think what we're all looking for is lasting community and lasting fans. And I think the best way to get there is maybe a slower path, but being more authentic. And I think there's more of a chance that you'll be successful along those ways. So Diana, what's that question? So I can see that, but do you post tepid or negative reviews, or the ones who you can wholeheartedly recommend? Like with respect to like when you're writing those?
Tony and I are having a side chat here. You've mentioned doing book reviews.
Gotcha.
And I said, wow, that sounds like it might be tricky, because if you post all 5s, you have no credibility. If you start 3-starring people, you might have revenge tanking happening. So how do you do that? And Tony said she's gotten other indies to read her books, but my concern is, how do you navigate? Do you only post the ones you can wholeheartedly recommend, I guess? Because
So we have this on our podcast with our homeschooling podcast, which is separate from my author work, but maybe have some interest there. We always say there's a lot of stuff out there. So if you're going to do a review site, you can do a rating system if that's something you want to do, or you can remove the rating system and have them begin to trust you and your recommendation. We always say there's a lot of stuff out there in the world that we can review, like, curriculums or books or whatnot, but we only recommend things that we like or use. So if I'm going to do like a review thing and you want to avoid the reverse negative review thing, you only put out things that you like, and you let the person know that when you're reviewing the book, if you're, getting asked to review something, that I will not do a review unless I like it. And I'll let you know that quietly, because I don't want there to be a negativity thing there. That's one way to approach it. You can obviously do another way where you just review everything and say it's a 1 or a 10, whatever it might be.
Yeah, when I did reviews on my blog monthly, I made it clear that I was just talking about the books that I loved.
Exactly.
And, because I didn't want to introduce negativity into it. It was basically me talking about a book that I loved and why I loved it.
Yeah, and if somebody comes to you, like what we've seen, they say, well, have you used this thing? And say, oh yeah, we've looked at that. It wasn't really for us. Or like if you're doing a book review, you said, hey, have you read the Shadow and Bone series, like we were talking before? You said, oh, you know what? I read the first book and it didn't really click with me. Like you can say things like that, because most people understand that not everything is their thing. So if you have somebody saying, hey, why don't you review my series or this series? You say, oh, it wasn't really for me. I didn't like it. You don't have to give a negative review. You can do that in like a Facebook page where somebody's asking you a comment. You don't have to actually write anything. You can be a little bit more authentic if you're doing more, comment level engagement, like on a Facebook group or like a Facebook page or something like that, you can be more honest about other things you didn't like. But like your public, whatever you're producing, like from a standpoint, like Linda, what you said, your blog posts are things I really like. And so people are going there saying, I'm only going to read this because I know she likes it. And she's going to then convince me to go read it, right? That type of thing. I think taking a positive approach at first is great, where you're not like having to rate everything and you're only just doing the things you enjoy. I think that might be a better way to go, at least up front. And then once you become a super expert, you can start giving 0 stars and stuff like that. So approaching free, maybe this is similar along the lines of what we just talked about. When you're approaching the idea of free, you want to think about certain things like how much time do you have? You know, obviously I'm still trying to be an author. I have to go write. I can't spend all my day doing video vlogs or doing TikTok or scrolling through Facebook feeds. I have to be thoughtful about what I'm doing. So you have to think about those type of things. Some of us have personality challenges, like we just don't mesh well with other people, or we're not more of an outgoing type of person, or we have some challenges when it comes to putting ourselves out there. That's a very normal thing, and that does not mean you're a bad person. There may be something else that you can do that maybe removes you, like blogging removes you from the performance nature of some of these options. We also have fear of the metaverse. Maybe some of us don't want to be in the social media world, right? We're concerned about that. Some of us have a tech phobia where we don't want to do a bunch of tech work. And so maybe editing YouTube videos is not your thing, right? You got to run away from that. If you do put yourself out there, there will be criticism that comes back in some form or shape. Some of us are afraid of the digital mobbing that occurs if we say certain types of things. If that's a concern of you, you need to then put that into what choice you make with respect to what free thing that you're trying to put out there. And then ultimately just pick what works for you. Like start simple, and I'll go through what I kind of do and a lot of my reasoning. I think I could do pretty much anything that I suggest today, but I only do the things I do because I only have so much time. The top one is really my guiding light. So let's talk about types of free. We'll talk about kind of a simple, medium, and more advanced. The first one that I always like to suggest people is just focus on your own books and world, right? This is the thing you own. This is you. You have cut prologues, maybe you have cut chapters, maps, drawings, character sheets, and casting if you want to pretend to cast for your TV show that's going to happen when Amazon picks up your show and then butchers it. You have character interviews, short stories, maybe within that world, short stories of side characters if you want to develop further stuff. I have some examples here. Obviously, Lord of the Rings maps, J.K. Rowling mapping out all of Harry Potter on a piece of paper, images of characters like from the Wheel of Time, stuff like that. If that is something that you can produce as side content, readership and fans and your community will enjoy these type of things. And a good author that does this is the Michael Weishart down below. I follow him on Facebook, and he does a lot of this type of stuff where it's just really, he just focuses on his world and what he does, and he doesn't try to do anything more than that. So it does fit within his effort of producing more books, because this is collateral content that he tends to put together in order to inspire him to do his work. And if you do this type of stuff, this is a great example of what you can do just as a bare bones minimum. Okay. Next, like a moderate type of level. So this is leveraging kind of your expertise in something. I would always say whatever you're trying to, where would this be? Blog, newsletter. Christine, you could do it almost anywhere. With respect, so we'll go back. This type of stuff you can definitely leverage in a newsletter or a blog. Very easy to do that. You could even do it as a YouTube video or a podcast. Like, it depends on how much scale and scope you're willing to do. And that goes back to that previous slide where I talk about approaching what you think you can do. Like, do you have time? Do you have challenges, putting yourself out there? Well, maybe blogging's a little bit easier. You have to make your Plinko sorting choices and settle on something that you're comfortable with. And so blogging and newsletters, he does a lot of this on his Facebook feed. So that's kind of a give and take there. He uses, in essence, I think he uses his Facebook feed as sort of a like a blogging platform in that respect. So hopefully that answers your question. If you're going to be doing more advanced stuff that maybe starts to bring your face, your voice into the reality, I would really suggest to leverage your expertise, but in your genre specific or adjacent content. So that means if you're a fantasy writer, you're doing fantasy stuff. If you're doing sci-fi things, you're doing sci-fi content that you're doing, whether it's blogging, book reviews, movie show reviews. Maybe if you're doing fan fiction, don't be a sci-fi writer doing fan fiction for, I don't know, Gilmore Girls, right? That there's that's kind of a wild one, but that's a good example where it's like you're completely opposite directions. The people who are going to be reading one thing are not going to want to read the other thing, most likely. So just be aware of that. Try to keep it adjacent to what you're doing in order for you to maximize what you're interested in and then also what you're writing. Because remember, everything's feeding back into you as an author. So you're doing fan fiction, social media, Facebook groups. Like a good example of that is Heidi. You have your bat Facebook group, or it's an animal Facebook group type of thing where it feeds into the fact that her main character in her children's books is a bat, right? And so there's a lot of overlap there, and that's a really good example of leveraging a Facebook group, growing that to 1,000, 2,000 people, and being the moderator of that while also promoting your books once in a while, right? So that's a good way to kind of tie that in together. And then if you do social media, you can do that with your short stories. You can write short stories about your world. You can write commentary about your world. You can have your characters maybe have a Twitter page. If it's like your main character, he has a Twitter feed, where maybe it's like if you're doing an urban fantasy, be creative. If you're doing an urban fantasy and it's, a fae in the middle of Seattle and she's just commenting on local Seattle, nonsense, but she's a character in your book, right? Those are the fun things you can do with these type of things. And it can really help you explore cool and new ideas and help promote yourself at the same time. Another type of idea where it's advanced, this can be very time consuming, require investment with like equipment or money, financial investment, and maybe more performance based. These are ideas that you can do, but could require a little bit more time and leveraging an expertise in a field. So we'll talk about what those mean. You want to try to focus on being, specific to your genre and adjacent. Again, if you're going to start something like this, start there. You can move out beyond that. Nobody's saying you have to be locked in. But if you're going to start something, try to be very close to what you're doing at the beginning. And then, if the world takes you in a different direction, obviously go there. YouTube's a good example. If you're going to do reviews, infotainment, knowledge sharing, watch parties, whatever it might be, book reviews. There's a lot of book reviewers out there. So you got to figure out how you separate from the existing world out there. If you're going to do podcasting, again, same problem. Platforms, genre servicing groups. So Sierra does this with her boy series. I know Diana was part of it. Sierra's an author in our group. She does this where she works with other authors and they group write books and then they group promote each other. That's a lot of effort, but it's a very advanced thing. It's a great way to get your name out there, but it does require a lot of time and a lot of networking. And a lot of us may not have that time to do that. Another thing is live streaming. So if you're doing Facebook Live, Instagram Live, Twitch, if you're like a gamer and you want to play games, like, hey, like for example, I write, if I'm writing, Call of Duty type of books where it's like military, level genre stuff, and I'm live streaming me playing Call of Duty or, whatever the latest shooter game is. That's cool, so that the people watching that are interested in that type of video game, and maybe you play different games that are all in that same genre, but you also write in that genre. So that's a good example of how it's adjacent, but it takes something you're extremely interested in, like say play video games, and then live streaming that, and you have to then be a personality while playing the game, and then that aligns with your book. So you'll have purchases through that. Same thing for YouTube. So you can get really advanced and really fun where the free is this content that is, very widely different than like your normal lead magnet that we talk about with respect to, here's a prequel to my series, to playing video games and live streaming that. Like it can cover that gambit, and it really depends on where you are and where your interests are. Hopefully that comes through. So we'll go through a couple slides here, just, getting into it. If you're just starting, I'm going to use the metaphor of an archer to kind of carry through these next 4 slides. So the first thing you want to do before you do anything is set your feet. So what does that mean? What do you have, right? What is your catalog of your books? What materials do you have? Do I have all this stuff? A lot of us have a lot of stuff on our desktops or our laptops around our world that can easily be, tweaked and changed and cut and, manipulated a little bit and put out as free content. So we have a lot of stuff. So make sure you find out what you have. Also, are you staying in your genre? Oh, I've been writing fantasy for the last 5 years, but now all of a sudden I'm going to do military sci-fi, right? Are you changing your genre? Because that's going to affect what you do. What do your readers expect? And it's absolutely 100% okay if you don't know this, but you'll have to discover this over the the span of what you're doing to figure out what they're expecting. But it's okay to start with one thing and then adapt over time. Obviously, do you have a website or blog, newsletter, social media? Do you have something already that you can begin to leverage and use, or do you need to go off and create something? And also go build your content matrix that was on the earlier slide. Where are all your books? Where are all your series? Where are all your lead magnets? And where can you focus your time and effort? I think is a good place to start. Next, once you've set your feet, you want to prepare your mindset. And goes back to that slide we talked about. What are you willing to do? How much time do you have? Can you commit these resources? All of these things. And are you willing to go the distance, 2 to 3 years, nonstop, delivering every week or every other week or once a month? Are you prepared to do this, for the long haul? And if you're not, then that's okay. If you're not, it just changes how you're going to approach these type of things and the amount of work that you're going to put into it. So prepare your mind. Once you prepare your mind, you want to pick your weapon, which means develop a good plan for your free. What are you going to use to promote your content? Am I going to do short stories? Am I going to do blog reviews? Am I going to do video? Am I going to do audio? Pick the thing that you want to do, or social media, whatever it might be. And sometimes it can be a combination of them. And we'll show a couple examples of that. Pick what you're going to do and then go ahead and commit to it. So find a target and do that. So a good example of this is like the top bullet, book funnel plus a newsletter plus short stories. That's the one I choose to do because I don't have a lot of time to do anything else. I do book funnel, I do my newsletter, and I write short stories for my newsletter. So I build my following there and I write content for that. You could do book reviews and blog. That's a great example of that is Rachel, who's in our group. I don't know if she's doing it as much as she did before, but she used to write a lot of reviews around books, and that was her thing to help promote and also drive interest in who she was. You can run group promotions. You can watch Wheel of Time on YouTube. Okay, great. She still does that. That's good to hear. You can write fan fiction on Wattpad and then read it on YouTube. Like, see how I'm like putting these pieces together, and it's like, oh, I really love fan fiction. I write my Gilmore Girls fan fiction on Wattpad, and I have a really good voice, and I'm going to read it on YouTube because that's really cheap for me to do, and I'm already doing it anyways, and I'm going to leverage that to drive people to who I am. Or maybe you're just going to write a bunch of short stories and use Patreon, maybe with BookFunnel as with that, in order to drive interest in what I do. So you can be as big as a TV level personality on YouTube, or you can just write short stories and send them out to your newsletter, right? It can cover that gambit. You have to pick and choose what you think you can do. All right. And then at the end, once you start putting out free content, I want you to think about repurposing your free. Keep in mind that people like different things. Like, for example, with my podcast, we do our podcast, but then I export that audio into a video for our YouTube channel. And so I put it out in 2 different places because there's people who like YouTube and there's people who like, subscribing to podcasts. And we also put it on a blog post. So when I load up a new episode, I do 3 things. And I might do 4 things eventually, or 5 things, right? I'm just repurposing the same content across multiple platforms in order to drive interest. Now, YouTube is something that I do a lot of, so it was a good addition to what we do because it's something I do already. All right. A lot of people consume media differently. If you do a short story and you put it on your newsletter, great. You can put it out as a blog post and maybe even publish it for somebody to buy. If you write a bunch of short stories for the year, bundle that into an anthology and try to sell that, right? So you can take your free content and make it something more within your publishing existence, right? If you do blog reviews, great. Create a Goodreads account where you become a Goodreads reviewer, right? And maybe you might actually end up start getting books from publishers. I know that they look for people who have followings, and maybe you can get the latest book, right? Those type of things are really interesting ways to take your free content and push it out across multiple things. And then also reusing your free stuff widens your funnel without the added work. Now, it might take you a little bit of work to, like, say, take my podcast, make a video out of it, and put it on YouTube. But I found tools that allow me to do that in like 10 minutes as opposed to like an hour, right? So with just an extra 10 minutes worth of work, I can have access to another platform. Just something simple to think about and how you want to do that. Now, with respect to when you actually put your content plan together, think about, over the course of the year, what is your choice? So this is a decent example of maybe something that I would do, right? Where I would have my content plan and I say, I'm going to write my books and I'm going to do my writing. I'm going to write a bunch of short stories. You can see SSSSS all the way across to anthology. And I will align that to a newsletter and book funnel. And then maybe you'll have a short story and do it as a blog post. And then you use your blog post to build your community and so on and so forth. So think about how you develop this free content and how it lines up through the year. Have a nice roadmap on seeing that, and then align that to your efforts in building your community. So you're leveraging your free content to drive interest and harden your community around you. So hopefully that makes sense. Just kind of a visual way of how you can see this. My wife and I did this. We went out to dinner and we actually sat down without kids. It was amazing. We mapped out all, was it 20, 50, it was like 100 episodes of our podcast for the year. And we said, here's what we're going to be doing. Here's what we're going to put together. Here's when we think we're going to do this. We need, 15 interviews, 15 of these things and 15 of these things. And once we had that, laid out, it really okay, I can do that. I can achieve this. I'm going to put this together and here's our plan. Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, every single week. And we'll continue to grow over that time period. So those are the type of things you want to think about with respect to what you're producing and how you're growing. It's not just sitting at the computer and cranking away on your words. You got to think about how it all fits into your wider plan of growing yourself as a publisher, as a writer, and becoming more than just that person behind the keyboard. So definitely an idea to think about. Again, at the very end here, keys to remember. I kept it to 30 minutes. Start with what you know, like whether it's the platform you choose, whether it's the genre you've picked. Stay with what you know, stay relevant to what you write, and do your research. So if you're going to be doing a platform that you have no experience on, get your research on there, find other people that are doing similar things so you can understand the expectations, and then embrace the long game. Engage with the community. That's the big thing, and other creators. That's a great way to grow, to be welcomed, to have other people work for you and market, you to other readers or people who watch or read your blog or whatever it might be. Communicating and networking is a big thing to grow. Obviously love your community. Don't use them. That's a big thing that I always like to do is I always like to give. And when I finally ask, it comes back in droves, right? So I really focus on giving a lot and then asking rarely. And when I do that, it always is it's a nice return. Do try new things. So whatever you end up doing, say like you do YouTube or something of that nature, you can, try new things, be adaptive, but within the medium, right? So don't jump tracks and say, oh, I tried YouTube for 3 months. It doesn't work. I'm terrible. I'm going over to TikTok. You do TikTok for 2 months. Oh, TikTok's terrible. I'm going over here. Try to stay with what you've chosen, because a lot of the problems of adoption and getting people to see who you are could be you. Right. It could be, you have bad video, you have bad audio. Maybe you're not very personable and you need to improve how you deliver things. Right. Those all have to be concerns in the back of your mind when you're making these choices. But, when you finally start to do it, you want to try to refine who you are and become better. And that takes time. So don't try to jump off if it's not, immediately starting to work. Obviously, add free content judiciously. So you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to do YouTube for 3 months. And then all of a sudden on top of that, I'm going to add TikTok. And then on top of that, I'm going to add this other thing. All of a sudden you're going to burn out and it's all going to fall apart. So that's another, maybe you should do. I'm not going to do a talk about TikTok at all. Oh, Heidi could do a talk about TikTok. I'm not talking TikTok. So be careful about burning yourself out. And then a big thing is use the platform. So if you're I know there's a lot of fear of us wanting to do the latest hot thing, but let me tell you what, there's billions of people on Facebook, there's billions of people on YouTube, there's billions of people blogging, there's billions of people who read. We're not fighting over 1,000 people, we're fighting over hundreds of millions of people, and all you need is a small little itty bitty sliver of that to be successful. So just remember, whatever you choose, whatever platform you enjoy is probably the good platform to start on. Like if, for example, I would suggest that Tony be a big Facebook person because she's on Facebook a lot. I'm on YouTube a lot, so I would probably do something on YouTube because I understand that platform and I know what's expected, and I know, all those type of things. So try to start with what you like and what you consume mostly. If you're not on TikTok and you want to get on TikTok, you better start using TikTok before you do that, because you can understand what they're doing. And when it becomes too much, I always say simplify, prune, and then double down on what's left. Really try to I like the minimalist aspect to start, because you have less risk of getting burned out and then getting confused that you're not doing something right. Being able to focus on what, one or two or three things really helps you maximize your return on your effort. So hopefully that is my dissertation on free. Does anybody have any questions? I have talked for 30 minutes. I've kept it tight for you guys here. Does anyone have any questions or comments? You can come off mute if you want to talk about free. So I'll tell you what I brought. So what I did is about 2 years ago, I really geared it down. I've now I'm going wide. I am out of KU. I am writing short stories. I'm trying to build my newsletter, and that is really where I live. I don't do the social media thing for the most part. I'm off of that. I have a simple website that doesn't really do much. If you want to talk, it's via the newsletter. I'm very responsive on the newsletter. If somebody responds, I always respond right back. But like, that's what I can do, and that's the amount of time, because with the kids and life and everything, it's what I can afford to do. So I really, really encourage people, if somebody's out there and you're feeling really burned out, or that you feel like you're doing too much, really simplify down, go to the thing you can do, really put your time and effort into the platforms that you enjoy. Things like, newsletters are easy and fun and good for me. And if I want to add something else, I can. But with me, I'm doing the writing. I've got the kids, stay-at-home dad, at homeschooling, and I got my podcast. So I've got enough things to worry about, enough things to do. I'm not going to add anything more. But if you are feeling burnt out, I really encourage you guys to simplify and prune the things you're not really passionate about. Like, if you just find you're just cross-posting across multiple platforms of social media, pick one that you really like, and then maybe prune down everything to just that one, and then maybe start building from there again. All right. Well, hopefully, I'm glad you guys enjoyed this. Appreciate all the nice kudos. This talk will be on YouTube. Probably within the afternoon. So if you haven't subscribed to our Writers Cooperative one, feel free to do that, and this will be there for you guys. Any questions? Somebody just came off mute.
Yeah. This is Diana, John, hey. Chloe, Serafina. What software do you use to do your video editing for your YouTube stuff?
Okay. Great question. My YouTube stuff is all here, right here, Shotcut. I will actually open it for you. It's a free program. I'm a big fan of free software. Yeah, as we were talking about free, I enjoy it. So this is the tool I end up using. It's a little scary to look at when you first open it up, but basically you're able to upload. We shoot all of our video on our iPhones. The newest iPhones do a really good job, and you just drag the videos in here, and you can prune and cut and clip and export the video into YouTube friendly format. And if anybody has any questions, Diane, if you have a question about that, I can walk you through doing that. You can also edit the video on your phones. That's another thing as well. It's a little bit more cumbersome. This tool is a little bit way more powerful, and a little bit easier from the standpoint of being able to work with a mouse and a keyboard and stuff like that. But Shotcut is what I end up using. To take my audio, like the podcast audio, and turn it into a YouTube video with just like a face card. Let's see. I'll put in the comments here, 2vid.io. That should be it. That is it. Let me 2vid.io, I believe is the tool. Yeah. So basically you drop in an image here, and then you drop in your MP3 here, and you say go, and then it builds you an MP4 file that you can load directly onto YouTube. So I can show you this. Homeschool together YouTube. Here it is. So what it looks like here is just your card See how it's just the homeschool card, and then it's our entire podcast just in audio form. And then these are just videos that we do that are shot on the iPhones as well. But you can see here's all our podcasts. All the green ones are the podcasts. These are the ones we shoot at, us reviewing books and stuff and whatnot. But this is a good example of that. But this is just the audio of our podcast, so you can do something just as simple as that if you want.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
No problem. Yeah. So between Shotcut and 2vidIO is, I would suggest. Any other questions anybody has? Anybody terrified that they're about to embark on something new or whatnot?
I think for me, it's more, I know I'm not where I want to be. I know I should be trying these things, but I feel like I don't, I feel like I haven't mastered what I have now. And so I'm really afraid of spreading myself too thin. But at the same time, there's very much this fear of missing out as people say, oh my God, you have to be on TikTok. Oh my God, you have to do this, that, and the other. And that's a tricky thing.
Yeah. So I'll draw the analogy. So I've been playing in crypto investing for 4 or 5 years now. And when you first start out in something like that, there's the term FOMO, or fear of missing out. I think the longer you're in the game, we've been doing this on the writing stuff here. I've been coming to this group for 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember at the beginning, it was a lot of FOMO at the beginning. Like, oh my God, if I don't do it now, I'm going to miss the Kindle Gold Rush. And after 4 or 5 years, you're like, what? It's still the same as it was. It's still dynamic. It's still fun. It's still wild, wild west. I think the FOMO is just the psychological thing you have to overcome at the beginning of anything, because I think it goes away after time. So nowadays on the crypto thing, when it goes down 20 or 30%, I don't stress, I don't fear anything because I've seen it all, and maybe that just comes with maturity. I just don't see the FOMO anymore with the writing industry as much as I used to. Any other questions? All right. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Wish you guys happy holidays as we're getting into the latter half. Hopefully we get some snow before the holiday comes. Have a nice little sledding and fun and lovely time. So I hope you guys stay safe and healthy and happy. And we will see you guys, I think, in, 2 weeks? No, that would be the day after Christmas. Tony, Linda, are we doing one after Christmas?
Yeah, we are. For people who want to, Susan's going to be running the social.
Okay.
So and we'll chat, and then a couple weeks after that, Matt's going to be back again talking about the new year.
I doing this?
Whatever that means.
We'll figure out what I'm going to do, and it won't be terrible, I promise.
I guess we're gonna we have Book Brush offering to do another one for us. Do you guys want to talk to her directly, or do you want me to pass along a certain date for that? I think she was pretty flexible in the past.
I think we'll talk at the steering committee meeting and figure out a date that we want to do that, or somewhere close to that, and then come back with a few dates, and we'll contact you. How's that?
Perfect. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks.